Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Hero Podcast 64, with, of course, myself, Ryan G. from the Netherlands, owner of EDS Aligned Data Strategy, and my co host, the real Pete Kirkwood, also known as the Kingmaker. Pete, hope you're well. How is everything in New Zealand? What is the topic?
Well, I'm pretty well. I'm busy. I'm flat out, man. I have been going. Absolutely. Watched a house sale today, which was good
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And I wasn't selling the house, but I was involved in a part of the process, and that'll be always good to have some money at a bank account. But it was pretty cool, right? I've never seen the auction at that sort of level, and discussing the strategy of bidding and things like that. It's just fascinating how much there is to learn in the world when you really start connecting into new things and bigger things and the rest of it. And this is coming to where I wanted to speak on today, because a lot of people struggle to find the right thing for themselves in the world because they're missing this fundamental beingness. And it comes from proper expression, right? You need to be free to express yourself. You need to have the freedom of expression. And obviously,
Mm-hmm.
that comes with responsibilities and consequences. Talk more about those in a bit. But the point of being free to express yourself, we hear a lot about this kind of stuff in, let's just say, in modern day, right? There's a lot of people saying you should be able to express yourself however you want. Well, you can. You can express yourself however you want. Nothing is stopping you. Now, consequences exist, and they might punish you for expressing yourself however you want. If you really hate somebody, expressing that hate by killing them will bring consequences down on your head. But if you, no one is actually stopping you from opening your mouth and expressing yourself however you want. They're going to do what they're going to express themselves after you've expressed yourself. And if you say, I think you're a loser, get prepared. They're probably not going to express themselves and go, thank you. You're so proud of you. So proud of you for speaking up. It's not going to happen. And I see a lot of people, the way they're expressing themselves, it's so indicative of an inner turmoil, an inner conflict. Even often you see patterns that people have absorbed over time, and you see the pattern express itself, and you start, I know exactly where this is going. Oh, look, it's Jane, and Jane or Joe or Jackie or whoever, they've been drinking, and we all know what happens when they start drinking, and everyone's like, we've seen this pattern. We know this pattern of expression. Mr. drinks too much over there, or Miss drinks too much over there, isn't thinking, if I yell really loudly right now, what's everyone going to think of me? She's just going, woo, I'm drunk, yeah! Because there was this like social agreement that when you're drunk, it's okay because you're drunk. But when you're sober, why are you yelling loudly? Right? All of a sudden, there's like these expectations. And what happens is our freedom of expression has always been there. But our perception of what we are free to express is the real trick. Because if you don't believe you are free to express yourself, you're going to be like, I'm oppressed. No one respects me. And you see a lot of this in the world. You see a lot of people calling out saying, I can't express myself and I want my freedom of expression. You're doing it. You're expressing yourself by saying, I'm unable to express myself. Well, you just did. You contradicted yourself. And I really want people to get a hold on the fact that they have the freedom of expression, because that just exists. The real part are the consequences. That's what people seem to not want to talk about. And there's like a thing where people say, I should be able to express myself. No, you can't. What you're saying is you should be able to have no consequences from your actions. Fuck up. It's just not realistic. So what I've really started to see is the way the hero expresses himself is free, but it's genuine. And I think you've probably seen some examples of this, right? So you think about
Mhm.
When people express themselves freely in a genuine way, then it really comes down to the consequences don't matter. If they really are free and they're really expressing themselves genuinely, they'll do it despite the consequences. You know, a lot of people who would have stood up at the beginning of, let's say, the LGBT movement would have
Sure.
been these kind of people, right?
I see.
They were standing up under threat of death. You know, the
Pretty much.
consequences are severe. Fast forward to today, you're going to get some nasty comments potentially, but no one's going to kill you. And yet these people are so oppressed that they can't speak up. Why? Because you can't handle saying someone saying something back. You want to speak up and tell everyone that they're an idiot for not believing in what you are. And when they say, no, you're the idiot, you're going to get offended. You just offended them. And this freedom of expression it's couched in the terms of, no, I should be free to do what I want. People don't want a freedom of expression. They want a freedom from consequence, which just doesn't exist. Because for those of us that live in see straight away, right? You're laughing about it as soon as I mention it. Those of us that live in the real world, we're well aware that when we say something, we suffer the consequences. And the funny thing is, now I believe it's well within my freedom of expression to speak the truth, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
I was to say, Ryan is a data analyst from Aligned Data Strategies, I would expect that to be, pretty fair to say that in all times. But
Mm-hmm.
if I am to say Cardi B is a famous rap whore and a criminal who has assaulted people, who's drugged people and robbed them, I
Which is
get banned,
true.
which is true, correct? I get banned. So my social media got banned for mentioning the truth.
Right, I saw that. Ridiculous.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny because it really helped me clarify this thing about the difference between freedom of expression and freedom of consequences. Like,
Right.
I suffered the consequences for using Facebook's platform to express my opinion, right? So if I say that on Zoom here in this call, in this podcast that goes on YouTube, and everyone who watches it, all the rest of it, go on, report me. If YouTube wants to ban me as well, to be honest, they're so fucking controlled, I wouldn't be surprised. But I'm less likely to believe it than Facebook. You know, Facebook's the Nazi of all Nazis. The that ability to see, I'm allowed to express myself freely here, and this has disappeared. This ability to just talk freely because people are so worried about the consequences of what they're going to say. And the big thing is that a hero analyzes his freedom of expression towards what needs to be expressed, not what he should say, not what he wants to say, what needs to be expressed. So if something needs to be said, he'll say it. That's what makes him a hero. It doesn't matter if he gets shot for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he has to take that risk. Think of all the people who've stood up in history against something. They took the risk.
Of course.
The French, the French Revolution didn't happen because a bunch of people voted one way and a bunch of people voluntarily said, we lost the vote, walked up to a guillotine. They were trying to kill each other over freedom of expression. And
Mm-hmm.
I see in our modern world where people aren't understanding this concept. There's like a disconnection between the reality of the concepts and the livingness of the people who are, well, talking about them, expressing them.
I see.
What do you see from that kind of contradiction, Ryan? Have you seen much contradiction between this?
This might be something to do with the times that we live in, which
Yeah.
has a lot to do with, hard men create easy times, and easy times create easy men, and easy men create, hard times for everybody. And it's in that simple principle that we start to find answers to what's happening. Because we had it so easy, we've become very lax.
Mm.
And in the laxness, we have found that we have found that it's very easy to make such things real. How is it that the previous generation would gladly die for what they stand for, while the current generation is quote unquote bitching about not being able to do the things that they want to do? That doesn't make sense. That just sounds very spoiled.
Correct.
And it's in that irony, let's say, because you would expect more comfort, that people will be a bit more less uptight and, with their head up their
Maybe
ass.
grateful, right? Maybe a bit grateful for the
Maybe a bit
sacrifices.
grateful, but we're not.
Nope.
But we're not. And it's in that you start to realize that we are some ungrateful motherfuckers, including myself. Because, I could never truly appreciate what my parents have done, what my grandparents have done, what, proper leaders have done for the world and, indirectly for me. Because
Yeah.
I have not been through his transformation. I have not done the sacrifice that he has done. Thus, my level of communication will not be on his level
Yep.
because of from where he came from where I think he came from.
Yep.
I could never want to copy it one on one. And it's in that we start to realize why we have so many soy boys.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this is the thing that's interesting is that the freedom of expression, right? You are free to be a quote unquote soy boy, right? If you want to go and be that kind of person, you're free to be that way. However, these people say, I'm not free to be the opposite. I'm not free to be aggressive. I'm not free to be loud. I'm not free to be masculine. Well, too fucking bad. Freedom of expression goes both ways. And I think that we're seeing an increasing disillusionment with this cancel culture, which is built on the hypocrisy of we're free to do what we want, but you're not. It's
Right.
essentially what cancel culture is, the hypocrisy behind. And I saw an interesting meme today, which had a woman standing there talking to a bunch of people. There
Mm-hmm.
was a hardcore religious zealot. There was a Nazi. There was a white supremacist,
Sure.
and there was something else. There was someone wearing they were made to look like ridiculous fringe things.
Okay.
And the person said, uh, something along the lines of freedom of expression is, you're allowed to express yourself. Oh, maybe it's time that you were cancelled. Maybe it's time that your freedom of expression was cancelled. Something like that. Leave this bullshit in the past. Something along those lines. And someone commented and said, absolutely, that bitch on the left needs to go. And it's funny, right? Because it's the perfect example of the person using their freedom of expression to tell someone else they're not allowed to have it. And at the end of the day, I'm not supporting any white supremacists, but I also know they're entitled to believe what they think. I'm not supporting any Black Lives Matter, but I also know they're entitled to support what they're entitled to believe what they think. Right?
Exactly.
People have been entitled to their wrong opinion forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my job to teach you the truth and save you. It's your job to want to learn the truth to save yourself.
Right.
So going all the way back, right? Freedom of expression of a hero. Heroes are literal saviors, right? People look to them to save us. That's why they get this title and the status, this class, and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is it doesn't come from that direction. It's
Right.
not that someone who is normal gets asked enough times to be a hero that they decide that they're going to be one.
Right.
It's not really how it works, right? Someone feels that they can't not be a hero, right? They can't let this go on. They watch an adult hit a child, or a man hit a woman, or something that they just can't see. Like, let's be real clear. You see a pedophile, an act of pedophilia, everyone can stand up and say that's fucking wrong.
That's gross. Yeah.
Now, Exactly. So in this moment, I feel free to express myself by connecting my fist with his face.
That's one of your options, yeah.
100%. And there will be a lot of people who will stand around and go, I would have done that. I was going to do that. Oh, if he hadn't have, if someone hadn't have done something, I was just about to. And a lot of people say things like this because they actually believe that pedophilia is fucking wrong and evil and shouldn't happen. But having the courage to express yourself freely in this environment of consequences and the double game of there shouldn't be any, except for people who disagree with what we say, leaves people struggling to express themselves freely. And it perpetuates the lie that you can't express yourself, because only the people who want to be able to express themselves are allowed to, the people who are traditionally unable to.
Right.
Now, because they're speaking out loud, their situation isn't changing. They're not feeling any less oppressed. So they just keep talking about how oppressed they are. You were oppressed. You're not anymore. But
You know what? Isn't it kind of funny how very similar our minds work? Because if we don't give our mind a problem, it makes everything into a problem.
Yes,
And I see a
exactly.
pattern between that. Imagine you're used to, you know, the commutes, let's say, the commute.
Yep.
And especially during lockdown, we haven't we had to get used to the fact that we're not traveling anymore. And even for me, it was kind of stressing me out because part of my rhythm was gone. Imagine if similarities could be drawn to, quote unquote, depressed people.
Big time. And see, I can draw a similarity right there. I struggled not being able to go and drive to clear the heat during
Mm,
lockdown because
right.
it was illegal. It was made illegal by the government for me to express myself, for me to express myself through driving, because I've grown up as a driver my entire life.
Right.
So you're right. There is a correlation.
Hmm. There
And
is.
what you see is these people, like, if you don't have the self-awareness to look at it, especially if you have a bunch of people who are chanting along, so there's no time to self-analyze or introspect, you don't realize that you got it back. Because when
Right.
I got the ability to drive back, I didn't feel like I had my freedom of expression back. It didn't feel that way. Because it had been taken away from me, I didn't feel that I was free to express myself now that I was free to drive. I just felt resentful. So I drove resentfully. So I understand people who have been oppressed who say, I'm oppressed. Well, I get why you feel that way. Because I was bullied my whole life. And even when I wasn't bullied, I still felt like I was.
Mm.
And it was hard for me to express myself genuinely because I was expressing myself as a victim when no one was victimizing me, because I'd been trained to behave that way.
So
So I'm
would you
free.
say um freedom of expression is contra to victimhood?
No, I wouldn't say it's contra. I would say freedom of expression is always, like, freedom of expression is it's the beam of energy, right? It's the
Mm,
light source. It's the ability for you to project outwards.
right.
Say you're Iron Man, right? And you've got the
Mm,
light beam in your hand, right?
mm,
Freedom of expression is the ability to fire it. What
okay.
comes out of it is what you choose to express.
Mm,
Now, the thing is, there's a filter of perception that's been put in front of that. It's like a glass that says, well, you are XYZ color, and this happens, so it means you're oppressed. You are this XYZ income level, so you're oppressed. You are this nationality, so you are oppressed. You are this sexuality, so you are oppressed. And this panel is sitting right there in front of you. So whenever you try to express yourself, you've got
mm,
to express yourself through. Now,
mm,
it's like when you're hunting a fish in the water. You put the spear in and it misses the fish. You're like, I got that damn thing. But the water changes it, so you get it wrong. So when people try and express themselves and they get it wrong enough, they start learning wrong behaviors. So they start ingraining a behavioral pattern of expression that is no longer, they're free to use it. They're absolutely still free, but they're unaware of the fact that they're not free, they're not being true to themselves with their expression anymore. And this is the part that has really sort of, it's a concept, right, to get your head around. Who you are as a self versus who society has told you are not the same.
True.
And if you can't be aware of these layers in between you, when you try and exercise your freedom of expression, it's going to create negative consequences. It's going to piss people off. It's going to upset people. It's going to offend them. It might end up with the armed offenders turning up at your work and fucking arresting you, like happened to a guy I've been speaking to recently when he chose to use his freedom of expression to say, he did say some things which were pretty like, whoa, but he wasn't saying them, he was saying them out of jest, and he was speaking amongst close people. It wasn't even a public forum, but someone called the police.
Oh, of course.
And so they turned up at his house. Yes. Now, I've criticized the leader of my country frequently for her actions because they suck. They're just absolutely, she sucks. Like everyone who's not a media shill is totally aware of this. That she has a stranglehold on the media. She has 4 press secretaries. The whole thing is a staged illusion. But when he said it out loud at the wrong time and the rest of it, something against her, the armed defenders turned up at his house and carried him off to jail and the rest of it.
Do you live in China or something?
I thought I lived in a free country in New Zealand, right? But apparently, yeah. Well, at the end of the day, the New Zealand's selling itself out to China. Not that the majority of New Zealanders know this. Our government's doing that behind our backs. You can only hear about it on the news from other countries, not our own news.
Of course.
And it's the freedom of expression, right? It's being clamped down on across the world. And you can't stop someone from speaking, but you can make someone think that they can't get away with speaking. That'll shut them up. So our freedom of expression is not under threat because you can't freely express yourself. It's already fucked because they've already convinced you that you can't.
And this works the same in businesses.
Same in businesses, same in relationships, same in personal life. You know what? I mean, I really like petite women. How dare you? How dare you? Oh, I do like petite women. What do you fucking want me to do about it? I can't change that. Like, what? Hang on, wait, if I like guys, that's okay. I can't change that. You'll accept that. But if I like petite women, I have to just say no. And I have to conform to your liking, you know, any kind of woman. No.
Right.
So we've been told we can't express ourselves freely, which is why I wanted to talk about freedom of expression, just getting banned on social media. And it was literally, well, we've warned you before, so we're going to ban you. Okay. Like, so what you're telling me is every time I make a mistake now it's cumulative? Oh, that sounds like you're training me to behave the way you want. That doesn't sound like freedom of expression. You know, you're going back through my past and judging it on new standards. That doesn't sound like freedom of expression. You know, all the ways that social media treats us, it's like Stockholm syndrome. They abuse you and make you feel like you're missing out and not part of the club. So you'll do whatever they want to stay part of the club, join. Oh my God, I got banned. I can't do my Farmville, or I can't. Like, fuck, man, I was running a business campaign. Fuck you. It fucked it up real good. But it gave me the freedom to actually stop being too micromanaging. And it has, like, being banned from Facebook gave me that ability to say, fuck it, I don't care. I'm just going to express myself freely on social media now.
I see.
Because this is something I think is really important, right? Almost to wrap this up. you're free to express yourself as much as you believe you are free to express yourself. If you don't believe you can say something, you won't say it. So if you believe if you speak up, you're going to get punched, that's not a problem. The problem is what you think about being punched. Because I
Right.
remember growing up as a child, I was never hit by my father. So I believed that if my father hit me, I would instantly die. And it sounds unrealistic, but when you're a child, you don't know any better, right? Dad's a million times bigger than me, from my perspective. If
Mhm,
he was to hit me, I'd just explode. Look how strong he is.
mhm,
And that led to me self-censoring my freedom of expression because I was so
mm.
afraid of the consequences. Now, the second I got hit, right, because now I fight, right? My life's changed a lot. I grew up in a very pacifistic family. My life's changed a lot. So I fight. And now when someone punches me, it's changed. Like when I express myself, I'm like, well, I might get hit for this, but that's okay because it's more
Mhm,
important to express myself. Whereas when the consequence was death,
mhm,
it was a lot harder. Now the consequence is a little bit of pain. Okay.
mhm,
Like as my stoic practices increased, as the rest of like all the transformation evolution you've gone through, I've gone through, the IMC
mhm.
brothers have gone through, that ability to handle consequence has increased our freedom of expression.
I
It's a
hope so.
balance. I've seen it. I've seen it in you, brother. I've seen it in many guys, right? Like some people in our community have opened up and shared some deep shit. You know, that
Yeah,
that takes some trust. That takes some
balls.
that some balls, big balls, big balls. Like I think some of the things people have said took some fucking balls.
Mm.
And that is something I really love about IMC is the freedom of expression that's encouraged within it. And it's something I just try and replicate in my life. I want people to express themselves freely to me. I want them to also be aware of these consequences. If you want to give me attitude, I want you to give me the attitude so I can tell you to fuck off. Don't play some
Right.
game where you sort of don't crow like we fuck around and hang around together. No, no, no. If you want to act like a dick, act like a dick so I can tell you you're a dick. You can fuck off out of my life and we both win. Look at that.
Mm.
So when it comes to freedom of expression, I think it's one of those concepts where you need to do a bit of self-awareness and a bit of self-analysis. And I really hope that the way we've discussed it this episode gives people the opportunity to just think about how they're expressing themselves and
I
check
see.
that level of what's going on. Does that make sense to you, Bubba?
That makes perfect sense. Because in the self reflection, we start to realize that we suffer in our own imagination. Because
Yes.
we have let people convince us that we shouldn't be able to speak so much or to speak so freely. It's very similar to um, I used to be very afraid of dancing until I did it time after time, ignored the haters and did my thing, and all of a suddenly, boom, I'm one of the best dancers of the neighborhood, for instance. And it's the same type of resistance you get with BJJ or whatever martial arts. I
Yep.
mean, you recently joined a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu club and you realize losing is not the worst thing that could happen in a fight. I can always just give up and start over. And it's in learning how to deal with not the losing, but the inner turmoil. Because that's what they truly fear. It's the inner turmoil that they were scared to face. Even me to this day.
Yeah.
We cannot avoid the inner turmoil, but we can handle it better. And it's very much like jogging. It gets easier every day. It's very much like a cold shower. It gets easier the more you do it. So
It does.
instead of, and this might be, the practice, stop trying to be okay and just be uncomfortable while you do it anyway. It's like yoga. I don't like yoga, but yeah, you do it anyway. I don't like
Yeah.
picking up women, but I do it anyway because I find them attractive.
I get what you're saying, right? And that freedom of expression, it's like when I think about it in terms of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu,
Mm,
I wanna fight, but I
right.
want to fight I don't want to fight so hard that I tire myself out unnecessarily and injure myself. So there's a maximum level. But I also don't want to fight so soft that I don't feel like I gave it my all. So there's this little band, right, between, there's I tried, there's I got tapped out, and then there's this gap on top that says how hard I fought from when I could have first tapped. And that's where I try and push myself to get more uncomfortable, because the more uncomfortable I get, the better I get, the more powerful I get. And it doesn't matter if you're expressing yourself verbally or emotionally or whatever, get a little bit more uncomfortable. And that will help you grow your ability to express yourself. So as we come to the end of this podcast, finally, I've given you some actionable advice for the listeners, right? Get that uncomfortable feeling, expressing yourself, so you can grow and express yourself better. That is how you become more free in your expression. That's me, brother.
Fantastic. I was going to say exactly the same thing. The more you do the uncomfortable, knowing that it has great benefits, the better you'll get. So let's end it on that. Dear listeners, and of course, our good friend Raul with the red lights. Do you have any questions before we end the call?
Microphone, brother. He's good.
Can't
He looks
unmute.
like he's
Okay, got it, got it. Can't unmute.
right, brother.
All right,
Sounds
then
good.
let's end the podcast. Whoop. This has been the Hero Podcast 64. My name is Ryan G from the Netherlands, owner of ADS Aligned Data Strategy, with my co-host, the real quick Kirkwood, the Kingmaker. I hope you all had a pleasant listening time, dear viewers. May life never be the same, and I wish you a good night, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be.